Okay, we are going to be working on a still life. So traditionally with a still life, you are actually drawing objects that are still, that are just sitting in one place. So as you can tell here, I've drawn some fruits, and so traditionally still lifes are done with fruits in a basket. But for this still life that we're doing in class, I wanted to try something different. Although if you want to go with the traditional still life of fruits in a basket or without a basket, then you can give that a try. I wanted to kind of break with tradition a little bit and go with the snacks, unfortunately, that I see students eating in the classroom. So no, it's not Cheetos. So I found this image online, and I thought that this would be more of the contemporary still life. I don't know if you can tell here, but it's a lollipop and some Starbursts. So typically with the still life, as I mentioned, you want to draw it from observation, so actually looking at it. But unfortunately, I do not have these items, but I do have a picture of it. So figured I could show you how to draw it from the picture, which is ultimately a lot easier. But if you really do want to challenge yourself and go with the traditional still life, then you're more than welcome to use whatever objects you have at home to combine and create a still life. But being that I have, quite a few students, and I'm trying to simplify the assignment and make it more contemporary, the assignment will be to draw this image here. So either or, whichever you would like to try, you're more than welcome to try. Okay, for this as well, on occasion, we have used grids. Grids take a little while to create, so if that's something that you're interested in doing, we can do that, but that would just be flattening this even further and creating, in essence, boxes that are small so you can draw this in smaller chunks. So I started to grid this out, but then I thought, wait a minute, maybe students want to try it freehand first. So I'm going to give it a try freehand, and then go from there. But ultimately with a grid, you would just draw multiple boxes to draw smaller portions. And then from there, you would on your paper, draw the boxes as well, to create the grid on your paper, so you can transfer basically the drawing. Which I think I would have to do a whole nother video for that, because that is really time consuming to create the grid. So again, let me try this freehand, and you have, through Teams, you also have this image. So you're more than welcome to try this as I am drawing. In fact, I encourage you to try this as I am drawing. Most artists draw with a drawing table or with an angle, but for purposes of this Elmo, it's kind of challenging to have this at an angle here. We talked about different types of perspective. We talked about 1-point and 2-point perspective. So this image here has multiple perspectives going on. So I have the image here, and let me see if I can put it a little bit closer here so I can actually draw it out and you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I would recommend, let's see, starting with the lollipop. So So you start with the circle. And I'm using a mechanical pencil, so hopefully you can see what I'm drawing here. So we've drawn a sphere before. So this is somewhat similar to a sphere. Ultimately, we're starting with the circle first. I'm doing kind of repeated lines to get the shape of the circle. And again, I'm drawing really lightly, just in case I have to erase something. So easier to erase. So we have the circle, and then from there we do have the stick going kind of this direction here. So the lollipop really is the focal point of the drawing here. I was trying to think about like where in the heck I could find a lollipop. Typically you find them, during Halloween. But I figured, oh my goodness, I'd have to buy a big old bag of them, and I just, wanted one. So, figured we could just use the image here. If you are able to find some lollipops and arrange this still life with the starburst, then have a go at it. I think it would be a lot more fun to draw it that way. So this is the bottom of the lollipop here. You'll notice that when you haven't been drawing for a while, as you can tell, I'm kind of a little rusty here, you tend to draw a little bit slower, which that's okay. All right, the next up here is, so in other words, you're a little bit more cautious with your line. Okay, so this is where 2-point perspective comes in. We have the top of one of the starbursts here. And then we don't have the other end here, but we have an angle. We have an angle going this way. So we talked about how, there's vanishing points. So there's actually a multiple perspective here going on. So we have a little bit of a corner here of the starburst. And then we have the top of the starburst here. So in essence, we have kind of a rectangular shape. And the lollipop matches kind of like the edge of the end of the starburst here. So when you're drawing, you kind of want to match up certain diagonals. So we know that starburst ends here. Okay, so, oops, my bad. This actually goes in this direction. I was looking at the wrong part of the starburst. So hopefully you have a handy dandy eraser there. So we have these lines going this way. And then we have this part of the starburst here, the inside part. And of course, starbursts usually are kind of rounded on the sides and chewy. Wish I had a starburst right now. It would kind of motivate me to draw a little bit quicker. So again, it's kind of rounded here as well. Alrighty. And then here we have another edge of the pink starburst. I was kind of curious today, so I actually looked up how starbursts are made. But of course, it didn't really show the factory or anything. But let me tell you, apparently it has a lot of sugar in them. And that's obviously why they're so tasty. Okay, so again, we have another top of the starburst here. So we want to keep them proportionate. So this should be pretty proportionate to this one here. So if you have a chance to look at the ingredients of a starburst, the first two ingredients from my understanding is sugar, I believe sugar and corn fructose, or whatever that's called, which is, from what I hear, just as addicting as any other drug. So this definitely is not a healthy still life. But it also can turn into kind of a commentary on what teenagers and what, some adults are snacking on these days. I literally will try not to keep candy or cookies at home because they don't typically last very long. All right, so we have one more starburst here. And there's another part here. So remember to kind of, on your end, you should have the resource of drawing on your Teams page. So you can kind of look at what I'm doing and see if it matches up. I'm noticing this edge of the starburst, the yellow starburst, lemon starburst, I guess, lemon dye starburst. Again, it matches towards the edge of the lollipop. So I'm trying to pay attention to the diagonals here. And make sure the angles are correct. Something funny is going on because there should be a little bit more distance here. So I think I put the lollipop stick a little too close. I guess if it doesn't look exactly like, it's okay. So this bottom one is a little bit trickier here because we have the top. This one here in the middle looks bigger than the one on the bottom. Typically, maybe the foundation should be a little bit bigger. So beginning to think maybe I should have started with the foundation and worked my way up because there is some issues going on with this bottom part here. In class, we drew these a lot bigger, and we had a grid already prepared. So in class we did, I don't know if you could even fit this in here, but this is all that it goes. Yeah, you can't really see it, but we did the drawing a lot bigger. So I'm try to draw smaller, and I'm noticing drawing smaller is a little bit more challenging. So this part here, this actually is wider. This part should be going out this way. So, oh no, I messed up on the stick there. No worries, I guess that's what the eraser is for. Okay, so, I'm going to have to erase this part here. And, you know, actually drawing from a picture is a lot easier, because if we were drawing this still life, we probably would be seeing kind of a bird's eye view of this. So I'm noticing there is, so the stick goes kind of in this direction here. And this edge kind of connects to that edge of the stick. So as you're drawing, you can find these diagonals and relationships between the drawing to interconnect everything, to make everything fit where it's basically supposed to fit. And of course we have the bottom of the lollipop here. So in my painting, I used oil paint to paint this and never quite figured out what to do with the background. I was trying to make it some sort of social commentary, maybe writing down the ingredients of the starburst or the lollipop, kind of bringing attention to all the non-organic ingredients, so that students or people in general kind of think twice before consuming these kind of snacks. But we all know that when we have these snacks in front of us, it gets a little bit more challenging to say no. Well, at least for some of us who have a sweet tooth. They say ultimately, however, you know, you ate as a kid, typically you follow that habit. So I do have habits of eating junk food, and then I go back to eating healthy food. Because, of course, my mama raised me with beans and rice and good stuff. So your stomach will recognize what's good for you. When you start eating a lot of processed foods, your stomach kind of loses that. It does the reverse, from my understanding, or it's actually happened to me where I'll eat some beans. Of course, you know, your stomach is going to react a little differently if you're not used to all the fiber and all the good stuff. Okay, so the lollipop has kind of some cross contour lines here. And so kind of trying to establish that there is kind of a shape here, or I should say a form here. And it kind of protrudes a little bit more here. And then there's, I think there might be like a top part here. at the angle that I'm looking at this. So notice, again, I haven't been drawing for a while, so I'm repeating my line quite a bit to find the right place. And you'll find that the more you draw, the more confident you become with your line. I'm going to add a little bit of shading here and there just to kind of show where it gets darker on the lollipop. And I'm still kind of debating whether we should do either watercolor or oil pastel. But I think oil pastel might work pretty well with this here. And of course, if you don't have oil pastel, then I would say try watercolor. Although it might be a little tricky to color in the lollipop with watercolor. So we can see kind of the bottom of the lollipop here. And there are some changes in value here that are pretty important to making the lollipop look realistic and to give it a form. So you want to pay attention to those changes in value. So I'm just doing some kind of quick markings to show where those changes in value go. And then of course, we'll, take a little bit more time with the coloring part. And again, if you consider this to be too challenging, then, go back to maybe the traditional and, pick up an apple or whatever fruits you have at home and have kind of an arrangement of at least 3 items, because odd number of items works typically better than an even number of things, and because we want to have a balance in the space as well. Okay, let's see. There is a little bit of shading as well here in the stick. So take a little bit of time to incorporate that shading there. Let's see. And it feels like maybe it is looking like a toilet plunger a little bit. So I might have made this a little too wide, so we can thin this out a little bit. And of course, when I add the color, we'll make sure not to color this orange. All right, so again, I'm just kind of adding the shading to know, okay, it's supposed to be a little bit changes in value here and there. There's changes in value here. And if you have an idea for what to do with the background, then I will make sure to get you some extra credit if you add something interesting to the background, something that goes with the drawing. As I mentioned, writing the ingredients of Starburst around it might be interesting. I also considered on my painting having the paint kind of melts off. That's another thing that could be done. But I'm yet to do that on my own painting, so I'm trying to just catch up with trying to set up something for students that all of my work has kind of gone to the side. So this is kind of turning into my work at the moment. All right, so we got the changes in value where they belong. Also, we want to look at the space and make sure that we don't have too much empty space. When you draw, of course, you want to use your whole paper. I could have maybe drawn the Starburst a little bit bigger. And in retrospect, I wish I would have started with this one because this one happens to be, actually no, this is the biggest one. but it almost makes sense to have made this one the biggest starburst, just because, again, it's the idea of a foundation and the foundation being bigger. It's going to be important that you have some sort of cast shadow here to give the impression that it's actually sitting on a table. Alrighty, so I thought that was going to take me a little bit longer. As I mentioned before, don't do like me and don't start with this, because as you notice, I had to kind of scoot it over a little bit. Also, I'm noticing this needs to sit more on the starburst, so I'm not sure how to make this look less like a toilet plunger. Maybe by adding kind of a top part here. Okay, so lollipop and starburst. The next step is going to be adding the color. So I'm going to give you time to find whatever medium you're going to use. I recommend I'm tempted to use oil pastel, just because we haven't used it in a while, but also watercolor might work. So I'm going to let you choose which one you want to try. And also, in looking at the actual piece, this almost looks like the original was done in oil pastel. Unfortunately, I don't remember where I got this from. I might have to do a little search to give credit to where credit is due, but this actually almost looks like soft pastel, which I know you guys may not have because it wasn't a recommended supply list. But I think we're going to try the watercolor, or my bad, the oil pastel. Either or. Also remember, these are water soluble, so I think we can actually add water. Once we apply it, we can add water to blend in the color. So, alrighty. So please gather whatever material, art medium you're going to use to color. And I will do the same, and then we will continue with this.